Welcome to PixelTunes Radio,
a podcast where we have fun
talking about video games
and video game music.
I am Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 105, Super NES, Super Famicom Deep Cuts. Now, some of you may be saying, what is a deep cut? And we will get to that in just a minute. But we have a special guest. Our guest today is Mr. Niko AKA The WiiGuy.
Hello.
So Niko was on PixelTunes Radio on episode 26, NES Appreciation with WiiGuy, and also episode 52, Famicom exclusives with WiiGuy. So, we wanted to bring him back again, and I thought, the perfect thing that we could bring him back for is Super NES and Super Famicom. These are super obscure or relatively semi-obscure tracks that we're going to be playing from, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the Super NES in just a bit. We've never actually covered the Super NES in detail for the most part. We've always kind of touched on it. We've always kind of been like, this came out for it or whatever, but we never really dive deep into the sound chip. So we're going to take a little bit of time to do that in just a minute. But first, we're going to jump into PixelChat questions. So, Justin, what is our first question?
So, from Jeff Leppard, he asks, if you had to pick one game to speedrun, which would be your best? What game would you have the best chance at speedrunning?
Haha, jokes on that question. I already have a speedrun game. It's called Jim Power the Lost Dimension, y'all.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. Such a good game. Yes.
The only man.
I don't know how it's possible that you do a speed run in that game because you can't go in the game until the bass drops.
It's true.
You have to wait because it's got that heavy do, and then it kicks into the that first level track. You can't go until that until that.
No, we categorize that under the bass drops percent run.
Yes, under the speed run for bass drops. What about you, Justin?
I do not have an official speed run, but thinking back, I think the only game that I'm really know that I've 100%ed is Super Mario World on the SNES.
Okay.
I've played that game inside and out. I don't really know how good my speedrun would be, but I think it's the only one that I actually have a chance at speedrunning.
Yeah, I hear you. It's very difficult for me to speedrun games because I'm always the type of person that likes to get everything in a game.
Yes.
So, I'll kill every enemy, I'll get every power-up, even if I don't need it. So some of the games I'm really good at that I can play fast. Ninja Gaiden 2 is one of them on the NES. Maybe Metroid, but I doubt it. There's people that have blown through Metroid in 14 minutes or some stupid thing like that. So I'm not even going to go there. But I would say there's two games that I could beat pretty quickly, and that is RoboCop on the NES and Karate Kid on the NES. I could beat both of those in under 20 minutes. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Super quick.
Nice.
But yeah. All right, so our next question comes to us from John Jekel, and he asks, what is the one game you are a master at that is hard, but you can beat easily? So kind of along the same lines.
Yeah.
What about you, Niko? What's your vote on this?
Well, there is this one game I play that I think I'm really good at. It's called Jim Power the Lost Dimension in 3D.
Oh my god.
Dude, that game is brutal. It is very difficult. I can attest to that. What about you, Justin? It's kind of along the same line.
Yeah, I would probably not say. Well, I mean, a game that you were a master at, but is hard. I wouldn't call Super Mario World particularly hard.
No.
I'm also not really sure how many games I'm good at that are actually hard.
Right.
One that we'll touch on later is kind of my favorite on the SNES called Gradius 3.
Yeah.
It's not particularly an easy game. I don't know how many people would consider it hard, but I used to play the hell out of that.
Okay,
so.
Cool. Yeah, that's tough. Again, I always thought that Ninja Gaiden 2 was the easiest of the NES games, but I would say I've gotten fairly good at the game to the point where I can kind of blow through it with maybe only losing one life.
I feel like all the Ninja Gaiden games are actually fairly hard, so I think it's a good pick.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say that. Okay. And now we have a question from your wife, Justin. Why don't we do the honors?
So, Ariel asks, if you could master an instrument you don't currently play, which would it be? And why if there's time?
I guess drums. I would really... Actually, I would say... So I played drums for several years, and I'm okay. I'm not amazing. I can hold a beat, and I'm okay. I'm not like a whiz or anything. I don't even have my own drum set. But if you give me a drum set, I'll sit down and I'll definitely play or whatever. But I would say the bass. I've always wanted to learn bass guitar, so I would say that.
Yeah.
Nico?
I don't know. I've never been much of a person for learning an instrument. If we could count like the NES sound chip as an instrument, I'd like to learn that. Compose music.
Okay, that's respectable.
There are people that play the consoles like instruments.
Yeah.
Chipocrit. I saw him in concert.
Yes.
And he plays the Game Boy like an instrument.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, Justin.
I play a lot of instruments. This is actually hard for me. Saxophone. I've never actually played a saxophone.
Okay.
And I do like the jazzy sounds of the sax.
Cool. Yeah, I guess my pick is more like rhythm based because I got the background for it. So Joe Dunbar asks, who is hotter, Dixie Kong or Miss Pac-Man? Wow, that's tough. I'm half excited and half disgusted that I'm gonna pick anything. I'm gonna go Dixie Kong because she's closer to human. And also Miss Pac-Man for whatever reason reminds me of my grandma. So
oh god,
I don't know. Yeah. What about you, Nico?
Eat a lot of nuts.
Yeah. Well, my grandma's no longer with us, unfortunately, but
fair.
she did like the candy dots, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Nico.
Was it Dixie? She was in there? Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Diddy Kong's sister / love interest.
The
weird unknown information on that.
The weird unknown pink
yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
Justin?
I'd have to agree because of the closeness to being human.
It's that luscious blonde hair.
Yeah.
And the ponytail.
It's also hard for me to find a circle attractive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Joe, for the question. Henrik Andersson writes, if you could be half man, half sausage, which way round would you have it and why? Well, I'm already half sausage. Ayo! I guess I would want my bottom half to be half sausage. I guess.
So you'd pull yourself around on your
hands. Well, I mean, you can't play video games with your feet, really. And then, you could still procreate, I guess. You could still have fun.
Depends on how that sausage works.
Heyo, Justin.
That's
something.
I don't know that I have an answer for that. I'm gonna say top half sausage, just to
be different.
Just to be different.
Okay.
It'd be plus the idea of a sausage top half running down the road.
Yes,
seems really funny to me.
Yeah.
Top half kind of wobbling.
Yeah. Nico.
My legs are already big and beefy like sausages, so I guess the bottom half.
Nice. Excellent. Our final question comes to us from Niko AKA The WiiGuy. Nico, why don't you read this one?
Geez, I didn't have it prepared. I didn't think I would be asking it.
Yeah.
I got it. It's really quick.
Okay.
My question from me to you guys is, hey, it's me, Niko the WiiGuy. Of all the unreleased games with no ROM dump, which one would you like to see?
Also,
and yes, hi future me.
You can't forget that part. Very important. All right. Well, you clearly have a answer. So
yes,
go for it.
Moto X on the Super Nintendo, because it's I think the only Tim and Jeff Fallen soundtrack we don't have. So I would like that one just for that sake. I mean, the game looked cool as well for the 2 videos that are on YouTube of it, but I would like Moto X.
Now, let me ask for clarification. What if it's a game that was worked on but was never released? So it was never completed? Does that count? If you could still play the finished
you can
product?
Extend to that.
All right, so my answer for this is there is a game that was never released, and it was developed by 3DO and a company called Four Horsemen Entertainment, and the game was called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And it was supposed to come out on the GameCube, PS2 and Xbox, and also I believe the PC. And the game was going to be basically you play as one of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but they were like real humans, basically. So there was like a priest who was like fallen, there was a stripper, there was like a couple other characters or whatever. But this game was really fascinating to me. It also had some really amazing voice talent. Lance Henriksen was going to be in it. He was going to play the character Abaddon, and Courtney Taylor was going to be Jesse, and then Tim Curry was going to be Satan, and then Tracy Lords was going to be Pestilence, who was the stripper character. So,
wow.
Yeah, it looked awesome, but it was like an action survival horror type game, and so it had some really awesome voices that we would have gotten to hear in a video game all together, and just it never came to be. I guess 3DO closed up shop, or you know, just didn't work out. So that is, I would love to see that game finished and come out. So what about you, Justin?
Not as easy for me, as I am not super familiar with
unreleased games.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the unreleased games. Although I do know that there was supposed to be a game for the SNES and the Genesis released by THQ called Akira, based on the manga and the anime. Right. And as a fan of both the manga and the anime, I would have loved to have actually seen that.
Cool.
And heard what they did with it, because the soundtrack for the movie was super strange with all that acapella stuff. So
yeah.
I would have also been interested to hear what they were going to do for the music on a 16-bit system.
Sure. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for the Pixel Chat questions. We're going to talk about the Super Nintendo in just a minute, but we wanted to start off with some music, so we're going to be picking from Niko's pick. We're going to go round robin with these. This episode's going to feature our longest played track ever. So, yeah, courtesy of Niko. So, we're not going to play that one first, but Niko, what would you like to play first?
Oh, wow. I get a choice.
Yes.
That isn't the long one?
That isn't the long one. That is the goal.
Oh my. Well, I would say let's go with, right off the heels of the question about unreleased games, let's go with a track from the Green Lantern that would have been on the Super Nintendo.
Yes, unreleased game. And so that is the High Score track, and it's by Mr. Dean Evans, an awesome composer. So let's give it a listen.
That was the high score theme from the unreleased Green Lantern game that would have been on the Super Nintendo by the wonderful, lovely Dean Evans.
Yes, such a good song.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this one, Justin?
Very nice, very soothing, very relaxing.
That's how a lot of his tracks are.
Yeah. Didn't seem sort of like a high score sort of like track, like other games that where they do like the high score thing. It's sort of like, hey, you won, and
right,
like more upbeat. This one is
you're
like
the best,
very very laid back, like, hey, you won. Nice.
Hey, you won. I was gonna say this could be if there was ever a Silk Stockings game for the Silk Stockings TV show from the USA and from the 90s, which, wow, I'm totally dating myself right there. I know I've honestly mentioned that show before. I don't remember what episode it was, but I remember distinctly bringing it up that there was a track that sounded like it belonged on the Silk Stockings for like the title music or whatever. But if there was ever a video game that was based on Silk Stockings, this would be the high score theme, in my opinion. It's just, it's a sultry, sexy track. It's definitely got those sexy vibes. What do you think, Niko?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, Dean Evans, known for just this sound. This is sort of like associated with his Super Nintendo work. That, you know, when he wants it to be. I mean, obviously stuff like Jurassic Park 2 doesn't sound like this.
Sure.
I just imagine if this was in Jurassic Park 2, the chaos continues, just like this soothing. Just like, wow, killing dinosaurs is more relaxing than I remember.
Be like, hey guys, do you like dinosaurs? Do you like sexy sounds? Well, then you'll love Jurassic Park by Dean Evans. It would melt your heart.
Oh yeah,
man.
But just, yeah, it's so good. I mean, when I heard this, I was just like, I'm in love. This is the best. Dean Evans can do no wrong. It's so good.
Dean Evans is something, man. He has done some really, really incredible tracks for the Super NES specifically. Lethal Weapon on the Super NES, which I believe we played before on, I think it was the movie games episode or licensed games episode that I think we did. Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues on the Super NES. Waterworld on the Super NES, which we didn't get here in the States, but Europe did. Flintstones on Super NES. Cool World, Eek the Cat, Pushover. He's done some really, really amazing stuff. Also, he started out on the Amiga in 1989 with his first game, which was Phobia. He also did Hook and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and also Lethal Weapon and Pushover on the Amiga. So he's really kind of that, he's got that Amiga sound that he brought over to the Super NES and continued it. His last game was Silver on the Dreamcast and PC, which came out in 1999 and 2000 respectively. So yeah, Dean Evans, British composer. I mean, very similar to Tim Fallon, I would say personally. I always like listening to this high score track. It reminded me a lot of some of the stuff that you would hear on like Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge.
Oh yeah.
For the Super NES. We actually tried to reach out to Dean Evans a while ago to try to get an interview with him, and unfortunately never heard back. But Dean Evans, if you are listening and you would like to jump on and be our guest, you know, if you will, Beauty and the Beast style, that'd be awesome. Yeah, he started working on games for Ocean Software in 1991, and he was doing sound effects and compositions. And he ended up leaving to move on to a company called Warthog Games in 2000. And then near the end of 2002, he quit Warthog and he started his own music company called Burn Bray Audio, which he is still currently running at this time. And that's where we reached out to him on Burn Bray's website. So you could check that out at Burn Bray, which is BURNBRAE-audio.com if you want more information about Mr. Evans. Now this game, Niko, tell me about it.
Well, of course, it was unreleased, so and it's special in that it doesn't have any video footage, as far as we know.
Yeah, there's no ROM, right?
Yeah, no, it's probably burned on some cart sitting somewhere in Ocean's. Well, not maybe Ocean's headquarters, but someone's,
someone who used to work at Ocean, right?
Yeah, it's a shame because obviously this would have been like, standard Ocean fare. Like it would have been a side scroller with some shoot 'em up elements, probably similar to like Chaos Continues in Jurassic Park 2. Yep. But also would have had some Mode 7 scenes, as shown from the Unseen 64 page on this game.
Yes, yeah, it looks like there were some flying, like, shoot-'em-up type scenes that you could, like, overhead flying across a planet, which looks really cool. But otherwise, it's like a side-scroller, beat-'em-up action game sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting considering I think right after this was canned, the programmers then went to do Jurassic Park 2. So actually, maybe this is where the inspiration where Jurassic Park 2 had like its its look and style and stuff. Maybe I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this is that a lot of the tracks that he worked on, Mr. Evans worked on, were reused instead for Ocean's Waterworld game, which was the Super NES game.
That could be why that track sounded so much like something from Waterworld.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good track, great composer. Definitely very underrated in my opinion.
Oh yeah, considering it's something that doesn't have an actual game attached to it, you have to know the composer probably mostly to even find this track.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to Justin's pick. What do you got for us, Justin?
So this next track is going to be from the SNES game Daffy Duck the Marvin Missions. It was released in 1993. The track is titled 20,000 Martians Under the Sea by composer Jim Hedges.
Alrighty.
Welcome back. That was 20,000 Martians Under the Sea off of Daffy Duck the Marvin Missions in 1993 by composer Jim Hedges. So
yeah, that was something.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd pick. There's not.
Please fill me in. Why? That's all I'm gonna say is why.
So this one is, like I said, it's definitely an odd pick. It sounds like a very strange song. As I was looking through some of the games that I was familiar with that I thought were a little bit more on the unknown or obscure side, this game came to me as it was one of the games I used to play when I was a kid. Partly because I didn't have much else to play. Like I had a decent collection of games, but as my collection grew, this game is one of the ones that went to the wayside, which is sort of unfortunate because as we were replaying it recently, it's not a bad game by any means.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed visually with this game. The visuals are they stand out. They're very crisp, clean looking Looney Tunes style graphics that are all really bright and good, like really crisp looking. So I was very impressed with this game visually. I think we only played the first two stages.
Yeah, because this is the second world or whatever.
Yeah, the first world takes place in like a volcano.
Yep.
And you're playing as Daffy Duck, also known as
Duck Dodgers.
Duck Dodgers, right. And so you're playing as him, and he's just trying to defeat Marvin the Martian, I guess.
Right. I mean, Marvin is... They're called the Marvin missions because each major mission, Marvin is doing something that is ticking people off.
Naughty.
And Duck Dodgers is out to stop him.
Yeah.
But as far as this track in particular, a lot of the tracks on this game are very sort of ambient and not that they're hard to listen to, but there's not much really going on there.
Jazz Odyssey, I was going to say. Spinal Tap. I know I've made this reference before, but very all over the place, almost like an acid jazz kind of sound to it. This is the track that I'm going to hear when I die, I feel.
This specific track?
I feel like this track would play while I'm falling down the stairs breaking my neck.
Oh my god.
That's what I picture.
Wow.
I don't know. Niko?
That's an interesting take.
Thoughts?
It was certainly music that you would hear in the background of a game, that's for sure. No.
Yes.
It's yeah, I didn't like it at first when I listened to it. I was just like, this is just a bunch of nonsense. But But then, of course, I looked at the game and I was like, you know what? All right, this very much fits for the game. Yeah, the game looks good, and for this style of music that I'm sure the whole soundtrack is like, of course, it definitely fits. I can't expect my Euro arpeggio synth sound that I would want in all my games, but I mean, for this game, I think it works well. I probably wouldn't ever listen to it again on my own, but
sure.
You want the deep cuts? Justin provided.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a deep cut. Deep cut. Let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
Deep cut is essentially a term used in music for a track that you wouldn't normally hear. It's not the Marios, the Zeldas, the Metroids, the super popular stuff. That's the reason why we call this one deep cuts. We wanted to showcase some of the potential abilities that the Super NES and Super Famicom had. A little bit about the composer, Jim Hedges. He started working on Tasmania under the music of New Romantic Productions. That was back in 1992. Kind of jumped around from place to place. He worked on Taz and Escape from Mars in 1994, so kind of continuing with that Looney Tunes-esque vibe. Bugs Bunny Rabbit Rampage in 94 he also did. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs The Second Cataclysm in 94, which was that full motion video Cadillacs and Dinosaurs game on the Sega CD. He did the gameplay music for that. X-Men 2 Clone Wars. Now, he didn't do the soundtrack to that, but he did sound on it, like sound design. Also did Nightmare Circus and Mr. Bones in 1996. For Mr. Bones, he's labeled under SMPC Music. I don't believe that he was the composer on the game, but he probably had a hand in sound, because we did talk about Mr. Bones on the Saturn episode that we did with Saturn Around the World. He also worked on two games that we talked about very recently, Gex 3D Enter the Gecko and Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko. He helped with music composition and sound on that, which the composer John Baker that we interviewed back on episode 103 worked on as well. So yeah, we just talked about those recently. Anyways, jumping way ahead, his last game was Legacy of Kain Defiance in 2003, where he was an audio lead. He's also been thanked for Tomb Raider Legend in 2006, so most likely he did some sort of sound support in some way, shape, or form on that one too. So, Super NES, it is a beast of a machine when it comes to sound. It has a chip in it called the SMP, and that's an audio processing unit that is consisting of an 8-bit SPC 700, a 16-bit DSP, a 64 kilobyte chip of SRAM, which is shared by the two chips, and a 64-byte boot ROM. Now, the audio subsystem is almost completely independent from the rest of the internal components of the system itself. It's clocked at a nominal 24.576 megahertz in both NTSC and PAL systems, and it can only communicate with the CPU via 4 registers on bus B. Very super technical, but I wanted to...
You want to break that down a little?
Yeah. The only thing that you really need to know at this point is that, believe it or not, it was designed by Ken Kutaragi and manufactured by Sony. People who know who Ken Kutaragi is, he was basically the father of the PlayStation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, before Sony worked on their own system, they worked on the Super NES.
Yeah, which makes a little bit of sense, actually, considering the stuff that happened later with the Play Space Station that became the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm. Very true. So we'll talk a little bit more about the chip as we go along, but really this episode is about showcasing the different uses that the sound chip can have. It's capable of producing like PCM samples, which for the most part are usually pretty clean, very crisp sounding, unlike the Genesis, which are oftentimes very muddy. It really depends on who has the chip and who's working on it in terms of the composers. We've talked a lot about that in recent episodes, like the John Baker episode. We talked a little bit about PCM samples there, and also on the Matt Furness episode where we talked about the Genesis PCM samples and things along that nature. So yeah, we talk about PCM samples fairly regularly here. All right, so let's get into my pick. This is a headbanger, if you will. This is Imperium, and it's the 1992 release. The track is called Base of the Sea, and we did get this one in the US. It's a track by Tenpai Sato, Tatsuya Sato, and Hiroki Uematsu. Welcome back! That was Imperium, also known as Mobile Armored Dion in Japan. That was the 1992 release. Base of the Sea was the name of the track. It's the second stage, and that's by Tenpai Sato, Tatsuya Sato, and Hiroki Uematsu. I don't know if Tenpai and Tetsuya were brother, sister, or whatever. I believe both of those are male composers, but yeah, really good track. This is right up my alley. It's got those Mega Man X supercharged guitars, the super shreddy guitars, and then I wasn't too big of a fan of the organs. I always felt like they were very weak in this track. They just kind of pitter patter in. And I felt like they could be a little stronger, maybe like Super Castlevania 4's organs, you know?
Yes.
But the drumming is really tight here. So, yeah, what do you think about this one?
It's definitely an awesomely driving track. I'm trying to remember, because I feel like we heard it when we played through, and I'm trying to remember what point it was. It was the background music for one of the levels, right?
The second stage.
Second stage, yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, the whole thing is just very, very driving. And
very fast-paced.
Yeah, like you said, the guitars front and center, the star of that entire song,
and the bass too.
Well, the bass too. The bass is like the driving factor behind a lot of it, but like the shredding, as you described it on the guitar portion, sounds awesome. Like I was saying we were playing the song, I feel like I want to hear an actual like live version of that played on proper drum space guitar, because it's a rocking song. Yeah,
our good buddy Retro Shred should jump on doing a cover of this, because it would be right up his alley, like super shreddy guitars. The bass, I will say, is very like slap bass style. It is pretty consistent with the Super NES. Like a lot of the tracks were more like high end, very like super slap bassy.
Yes.
And so that fits here. Like I said, I really do feel like this track, they ripped the sound font, if you will, or sound style, if you will, from the Mega Man X games. It sounds right out of them. So, Niko, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I dug this right when I heard it. I was like, yeah, I can get down on this, especially for the type of game that this is for a top-down shooter. It fits very well, and I was definitely like, yeah, I'm getting Mega Man X vibes from this, even though this was a year before Mega Man X came out, and because Mega Man X was 93, so you could definitely be like, oh yeah, this was totally a demo Mega Man X track. Can't you tell? Like, you could trick someone into thinking this was like supposed to be in that game, but yeah, I very much liked it.
I'd like to point out that the box art says "Get ready for a heavy metal explosion" for the Super NES version.
Wow.
So it's kind of they knew that they wanted to make something that was powerful sounding.
Yeah.
Like this. So
this could totally be covered by a heavy metal band, just like that's shredding for sure.
Absolutely. The game is a shmup. It's vertically scrolling. It's, for the most part, okay. It doesn't really stand out to me. I didn't really find it engaging, or I mean, I had fun playing it, and I would love to keep playing it, but I didn't find it like standing out amongst the sea of side-scrolling shooters.
Right, so. Not like Philios or something.
Right. Philios! Why? So this game takes place in the year 2027, which was funny because it didn't even click for me until while we were playing it, Justin was like, yeah, that's in 10 years. And I was like, oh no, it is in 10 years. We're so old. But actually it's less than that, because when this is coming out, it'll be 2018. Yes, so we are recording on New Year's Eve currently, so yeah. Fun times. So the Earth is attacked by this planetoid space fortress called Zektron. And so everything's getting destroyed by these Zektron forces. And so an underground group of rebels, they have developed a small mech called something, it's called Dion. It's called Imperium in the US version. And so it's aboard a mothership called the Leona. And so I guess this Imperium ship is super powerful, and despite its smaller size. It's a very colorful game, like visually speaking, for a shmup. Normally shmups are kind of dirty, kind of dingy in most cases, but this, I mean, when you're flying over, first off, your ship is multicolored as well, so it kind of looks like a Gundam.
Yeah, a little bit.
In a lot of ways. But visually speaking, you're flying over the city, and it's scrolling by really fast, but you see like all the little individual houses and stuff, and I thought the overhead view on that first level was really cool.
Yeah, they put a lot of detail into it, which was pretty cool. And I mean, it is sort of a standard shmup.
I know you were not a big fan of the fact that there's no like immediate lives or whatever. It's basically
it was that one where there was the you pick up different weapons, you can switch between them, and then you just sort of have them, which was cool. Like you don't run out of the weapons, or
right.
as far as we saw.
Yeah, no.
But you get 1 life and 5 bars of health, and and that's it. Game over.
Yeah, game over. And then you can continue. Like when it makes you go back to the main screen of the game, and then there's a continue option that pops up. But like it's just kind of annoying. I don't know. You can only use the continue option 4 times, from what I understand. So that means you have 4 lives,
right?
Basically, to beat the entire game. Like that's brutal.
Yeah,
that's brutal. That's brutal, McNoodle. What do you think, Niko?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Vic Tokai was familiar much with like shooters, because I can't think of any they even did on the NES or other consoles.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I think this was like the first.
Vic as a person, he only published it. The developer was Joe Rudin.
Yeah, like Jordan, except.
Yeah, they've worked on a bunch of Super NES like shooter type stuff, including Musia, and also Alien vs Predator, which is a game we're going to be talking about in a little bit.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about like the name, like Vic Tokai putting their name on like this type of game, but I mean, considering D-Force was the year prior, this definitely is a step up on that type of game.
Right. Yeah, D-Force was pretty good.
All right, but early Super Nintendo fare. But also considering 2 months prior, before this game actually released, kind of had this advantage there too, being like, hey, look at this top-down shooter, doing all the crazy stuff.
Well, yeah. Anything Konami did was gold for the most part on the Super NES.
Probably unfair to compare, but just in the retrospect of the shooter, SNES shmups. There was all that.
Yes.
But as far as this game goes, I would give it the Niko seal of approval to at least play and check it out and hear the rest of the music.
Absolutely. So Tenpai Sato and Tatsuya Sato did not actually work on all the same games, believe it or not. Tenpai Sato worked on a bunch of titles, including Exile in 1988, Deathbringer in 1988, we're going to jump around here. Task Force Harrier EX in 91, Fiend Hunter in 93, which that was casting produced. I'm not sure what that is all about.
They cast the produce, like the lettuce and the
the pickles, the cheese.
Yes.
Yes. Always got to bring up pickles and cheese on a Niko WiiGuy episode.
Definite pickle.
La Pucelle Tactics in 2002, which is a pretty neat strategy RPG. Makai Kingdom Chronicles of the Sacred Tome in 2005. He worked on a lot of Disgaea games like Disgaea 1 and Disgaea 2, and also the spin-off Prinny, Can I Really Be the Hero? In 2008. Which I love the Prinny penguins in that game. His final game, he did the opening theme called I Know Noise, and that game is Trillion God of Destruction in 2016. And he also did The Witch and the 100 Night Revival Edition in 2016 as well. So he's with that company, NIS.
And as this is a music-based podcast, I'd also like to point out a game that actually has a special place in my heart called Rhapsody, a musical adventure.
Oh, right, yeah.
I just noticed, with all the other Atlas stuff on there, I don't know why I was surprised to see that, but he did the music on that game, and that game came with its own soundtrack, and was pretty good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Tatsuya Sato is labeled on this for audio as well, but he's only ever done Imperium and Magna Braban Henreki no Yusha. Yeah, in 1994, he was assistant composer on that one. He's done other video game related stuff. Like, he did design on Beach Spikers Virtual Beach Volleyball in 2001 for the GameCube. He did some programming and engineering work on the Earth Defense Force series. And also he did enemy and demo program for Streets of Rage 2 and Daytona USA in 96. So, kind of a program guy on that one. What about the last composer?
Hiroki Uematsu, also a fairly slim roster did audio for Imperium, as well as a couple of Tales games. Tales of Xillia 2 in 2014 and Tales of Berseria in 2017.
Yes, yeah, that fairly recently came out. That's supposed to be a really cool game. I need to check that one out. So that's it. That is Imperium. So why don't we move back up to the top of the roster? Nico, what you got for us?
Oh boy. All right, I think you're going to like this, I guarantee it. This is the main theme to Stone Protectors, released in 1994 on the Super Nintendo, of course, by Steve Duckworth.
Steve Duckworth, let's hit it.
That was the main theme to 1994's Stone Protectors, released on the Super Nintendo by Steve Duckworth.
Yeah, this was something. This was like the ghost of Tim Fallon.
A little bit.
Like, yeah, I mean, Tim Fallon's not dead, but if he...
well, his music
I
career.
feel like, yeah, well, true. Ooh. But I feel like Steve Duckworth channeled the inner spirit of Tim Fallon in order to showcase his awesome talents. But I just love how it moves from instrument to instrument.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of highlights, it peppers out throughout the entire track, just like highlighting how good the organs can sound, how good the bass can sound, how good the guitar can sound. Every instrument,
the drums, yeah.
Yeah, every instrument is highlighted in this track. It's really brilliant.
Yeah. It sounds really, really good overall. I mean, for a SNES track, it sounds very clean. Like you said, you can hear the instruments very well. They're really well showcased. Mm-hmm. And it actually sounds better than the theme that's imitating. Like, it sounds better than the theme of the Stone Protectors.
Right, yeah. But you can definitely hear that Stone Protectors.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I remember that theme song. I remember the cartoon. It's basically, the whole thing is just trolls, but for boys.
Buff male trolls.
Yeah, buff dude trolls.
With shorter hair and
lubed up with Crisco and, you know, ready for basting. I don't know.
Ready for basting.
Ready for basting. What did you think, Nico?
What did I think?
Why'd you pick this one? Yeah, why'd you pick this one?
Because I think it's just one of the best, like, main themes on the Super Nintendo. I just, as you said, like, all the instruments just being shown off, and just the overall sound is just so clean and just rocking. And Steve Duckworth, I mean, man, he's good. Like you said, channeling like that Fallen vibe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's actually been pretty, like, he's been doing a lot of stuff. I mean, his first game was Stone Protectors in 94, but, you know, he continued with Family Feud, Dino Dinny's Soccer in 94. He actually worked on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo in 95, probably like a 3DO port or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think he worked on the Super NES version, but it's possible. Maui Mallard in Cold Shadow in 95. Ooh. Duke Nukem 64 in 97. Disney's Hercules in 97, which was a pretty cool game. Jumping around here, 40 Winks in 99. Crash Bash in 2000. You know, he's done a bunch of other games, just all different types. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy in 2003, which was a pretty good title. Did a lot of stuff for Disney. G-Force in 2009. Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End in 2007. He did original and re-recorded in-game music for that. His final game is 2012's 007 Legends. And he also worked on GoldenEye 007 Reloaded in 2011. So, yeah, he's for the most part been a licensed games guy, other than a few examples. But yeah. Looks like he's jumped around from like Midway to probably like Sony and also Kemco. Well, Kemco published this Stone Protectors game, right?
Yes, with Eurocom as the developer.
Right.
Which
I don't know. Did you watch the show, Niko, back in the day?
Did I watch the show?
That is the question.
Yeah.
This is the question. I watched the first episode and it was
not impressed.
No, it's 90s.
No.
You know, 90s flair.
Turtles ripoffs. You
know.
know.
But it made me appreciate the game more.
Tell me about the game.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about the game.
The game is a beat 'em up, which I didn't expect, but you know what? Kind of makes sense, actually, now that I think about it.
Sure.
I definitely appreciate the game more. Like, the intro was actually pretty well faithful to, like, the cartoon and how it started out. I mean, it's a little, like, you know, can seem a little awkward, but I mean, I think the developers at least knew what they were basing the source material off of. But yeah, you have like the 6 characters. What is it? There's Cornelius, Chester, Clifford, Angus, and Max. Oh, it's 5, not 6, but still, you get to choose between the 5 stone protectors and just start beating up some bad guys.
You're the 6th one, Niko.
I'm the. I need to have him make up a cool name. I need to be like like
Niko the WiiGuy.
Brutus. Oh.
Brutus.
Yeah, that fit in with the other names.
No, you would be Niko.
Oh.
Niko the Great WiiGuy. Yes.
I attack with music. Just comes right on my body.
You attack with music and pickles.
Yes, can't forget the pickles.
Yeah. And you have a shield made of cheese.
Ooh, delicious.
Yeah, shield made of cheese.
Yes. Delicious. You could give people a delicious beating.
What color would a stone be?
Huh?
What color would a stone be?
What color would your stone be?
Oh, it would have to be rainbow colored.
Rainbow colored?
I inherit them all the colors.
Oh, okay. So you're like the leader.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be the leader of. Okay. I got you.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you for noticing me as such.
Yeah, man. That's how we do here on PixelTunes Radio.
But
we label our guests with the art of stone powers. I don't know, troll powers. Would they be stone powers or troll powers?
I mean, technically they're trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're using stones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's how the trolls worked.
That's true.
They got the power from the stones.
Yeah, because the trolls had stones too, right? And their tummies.
You rub their tummy and make wishes, and then whoever it was, Hasbro, decided that they wanted to market to boys and girls, and decided to make an extreme masculine version of trolls.
Yes. When I think masculinity, I think stone protectors.
So do I.
Hey.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. That's something. Yeah. So let's move on to our next track. What do you got for us, Justin?
All right. So this next one is from the 1993 Alien vs. Predator game. And it is the Spaceport track by Tenpei Sato, Hisayoshi Ogura.
All right, let's listen to this 1993 jam, AVP.
Welcome back. That was the Spaceport track from 1993's Alien vs. Predator game on the SNES, composed by Tenpei Sato and Hisayoshi Ogura.
AVP?
In the his house.
In the hizzy. What'd you think, Niko?
I liked it. I like how fast it is, and just like those drums, just like keeping the beat going, and then just like the shred of like the keyboard sound. I mean, you can shred on the keyboard, basically.
I guess if you could shred cheese, you could shred a keyboard.
Yes, quite.
Truer words.
Yeah, this is another game developed by Joroden, who I hadn't even heard of until we started doing this this podcast. This one, though, is published by Activision, and I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't really get a good rap, because most people think, when they think of AVP games, they think of either the game that came out on the Jaguar, which was the first-person shooter, or they think of the Capcom Beat 'em Up, which came out right around this time. It's an arcade exclusive.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people think that the Super NES version of the game is a port of that game, and it's not.
No,
I would love a port of that game on the Super NES, but unfortunately it did not come to be.
No, this game was really fun though. This is another one of the handful of games that I had when I was really young. Mm-hmm. Not really sure what made my parents say that, oh, Alien vs. Predator is a good game for a child.
Hey, this kid Justin, he's a good kid. Let's give him AVP.
But it wasn't very bad. I mean,
that was your mom, by the way.
Good,
yeah,
pretty accurate.
And your dad was like, I think that's a great idea. Let's get Justin a game where you beat up aliens.
Yeah. I mean, as far as violence goes, it wasn't super violent. It wasn't like Mortal Kombat blood everywhere violent. I mean, it's a beat 'em up, and beat 'em ups are inherently violent.
Yes.
But the game itself was pretty good. I mean, as far as plot goes, the story itself takes place on, or it starts out on Vega 4, where human workers are digging in a subway tunnel and they accidentally uncover some xenomorph eggs.
Of course.
And then the predators are like, hey, we want to kill those guys because we like hunting things. Mm-hmm. But you make your way from Vega 4 through different like parts of the city and this sewer to end up on a spaceship, and then you end up on like the alien homeworld.
Big Apple, 3 a.m.
Yep,
right.
Yep.
And
then you kill the Shredder, who's teamed up with the Queen.
Right. Of course. Absolutely.
But the track itself, I just want to say, like, I love the way that it opens, like just with the piano synth runs, and how like Niko said, it's fast. It's very fast paced. I like fast driving songs.
Same here.
And it's very fast and driving. And again, like, you can hear a lot of the different instruments fairly clear. Like the drums are very clearly defined there. The bass, back to what you were saying in one of the earlier tracks, it's got that slap bass kind of sound, and it's just it's fast, but it doesn't feel hectic to me. It's just
no, I agree. It's fast, but it's got a purpose. It's got a nice drive to it. It's got a really solid Japanese action game music sound that we've talked about on previous episodes. So I really like this one. I'm going to pick this game up. It's pretty cool. So the composers, we already talked about Tenpei Sato, so we're not going to talk about them. But interestingly enough, Hisayoshi Ogura is a Zuntata alumni. Worked on Legend of Cage in 1985, worked on Arkanoid in 86, Rainbow Islands in 87. Jumping ahead, worked on Ninja Warriors in 1988. Did I believe the arcade version of that. Tracks like Daddy Mulk, like we played on the Ninja episode that we did way back when. Stuff like that. New Zealand Story in 88. Jumping ahead, was a composer on Sagaya, which was Darius 2. Darius Twin, or Darius 2, I believe, is the name of that game. It's called Sagaya for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Rastan Saga 2 in 89, Continental Circus in 89, Bari Densetsu in 89. Jumping ahead again, Darius Plus in 91, Darius Gaiden in 1994, Darius Burst in 2009. He was a composer on that. He also was the sound director on a game called Exit, which is a neat little game. And Gun Frontier in 97, he worked on that as a sound director. And Operation Thunderbolt in 1994. So, yeah, he's kind of been all over the place, but for the most part, he's been a Zuntata guy. We probably talked about him quite a bit on the episode that I was not on, which was Ed and Brian did an episode on Taito arcade games. Nice. Most likely they probably played a track from him. So, good stuff. I dig it. So this one has always been like one of those games that I would see on the shelf at a game store and be like, ugh, Activision, no thanks. But I'm kind of kicking myself now because I really should have picked it up. So this will be a definite.
Yeah, Mike. Jeez.
Yeah, I know, right? God.
Judging a book by its cover.
Honestly. Speaking of judging a book by its cover, this is Treasure of the Rudras, also known as, or more appropriately known as Rudra no Hiho in the Japanese version of the game, which was the only exclusive version. This game only came out in Japan in 1996. The track is Battle for the Fields, and this is by Ryuji Sasai, a Square alumni. Let's give it a listen. From the makers of Now That's What I Call Music, volumes 1 through 20XX comes Now That's What I Call the Super Nintendo.
Whoa, that sounds awesome. Such a 90s throwback. Tell me more, radio guy.
Sure thing, dude who will buy anything. It's all the sweet sounds and jams from the 16-bit era of gaming, Super Nintendo style.
Radical.
That's right. Just listen to hits like Donkey Kong Country.
Huh, that's weird. That sounded like a bunch of ambient noise. Maybe it was just my internet being weird.
Here's another slammin' tune from Final Fantasy III.
You mean 6?
Whatever, take a listen.
Okay, there's no way that was a glitch. What's going on here? Where's all the rad background music?
Now check this one. I call it Now You're Playing with Power.
Wait, I know that sound. That was the power button on a Super NES. Are you just recording the sound of someone putting these games into the system and turning it on?
Yes! All your favorites are back and better than ever on Now That's What I Call the Super Nintendo. Act now and we'll throw in some additional deep cuts like unwrapping controllers, cleaning the carts with a Q-tip, plugging in the system into the back of the TV. Come on, stupid thing. Come on. And of course, getting your parents' permission to call the Nintendo Power Hotline. Come on, Mom! It's only $1.99 a minute! I swear I'll be quick. I gotta find out how to beat Lavos and Chrono Trigger.
I am so confused.
Great. Call 1-800-255-3700 to place your order today. Oh man, that was such a good track. That was Treasure of the Rudras. Rudras?
Considering it's Japanese, it's probably Rudras?
Rudras? I don't know.
But,
I don't know. It came out in 1996. It's actually called Rudra no Hito. Or no, sorry. It's actually called Rudra no Hiho in the Japanese release of the game. This one only came out for the Super Famicom in 96. It's an RPG developed by Square, or Squaresoft as they were more commonly known back then. And the track is by Ryuji Sasai. Ryuji Sasai, no stranger to the podcast. We played him on the Final Fantasy episode, I believe it was, Mystic Quest. I think we picked a track from that. He's just an awesome guitar-driven composer. A lot of his tracks that are really impressive, you know, with that heavy synth in the background, the keyboard synth, like in the background. So he also did Zack, the Art of Visual Stage in '89. And Zack 2. So we talked a little bit about the Zack series. It's kind of like Ys a little bit. Yeah, so good stuff. I love Mystic Quest soundtrack personally, and I really like Mystic Quest the game. I know, you know, some people aren't fans of it, but
yeah, no, I mean, you don't have to shy away. I didn't like the game. I do agree that the music was great.
Yes.
I have to go back and replay the game at some point because my hang-ups on the game were more along the lines of like I came from Final Fantasy 1, 4, and 6,
right,
or as we got them 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And then this game was just, it was so different. Like being able to see the enemies, no random battles, the way that things worked. It felt to me like Tonka, my first RPG type thing, and I was just like, no, thank you.
Right.
But I had never realized, we talked about this at some point, how this was supposed to be like the Final Fantasy for American audiences or something. And it, like, looking at it from that lens, it made a lot of the decisions that they made make more sense, and I'd actually like to go back and replay it. But
yeah,
the music was fantastic.
Absolutely, and I think that continues here in Treasure of the Rudras. You know, that name, by the way, is really only given by, I think, American audiences. You know, with the game called Rudra no Hiho, or a literal translation of Treasure of Rudra. So it's a really interesting game, and because it's such a late release in the Super Nintendo's library, I mean, this came out like right around the time of Star Ocean, so it was one of the most advanced RPGs on the system other than Star Ocean, I would say, which the first Star Ocean had some really impressive sound technology, full voiced like PCM samples that were, you know, for the most part pretty crisp, pretty clean. Here we don't have as much of that. There's no like special chips that I know of that are in this game to make use of like more advanced PCM samples, but what we do have here is really gorgeous big giant sprites when you're fighting enemies. Oh, yeah. And what's cool about them is, you know, back in the day of like Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, you would see these really gorgeous sprites that they would have, but they wouldn't really move. They would more like move left, move right.
Yeah.
But these, you know, I was very visually impressed because we got to the first like major boss in the game, and it was more like a cutscene than anything because I wasn't really actually fighting him, but his whole body was moving, and it reminded me a lot of Street Fighter Alpha, or no, I'm sorry, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super NES. There's that cutscene in the beginning where like Ryu's whole body is moving. Oh yes, and then he throws that Hadouken. You know, I was always so impressed by that visually, and so to see something very similar to that here in an RPG is just very breathtaking. Yeah,
it was very, very well animated.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. What about you, Niko? Have you played this one?
No, I've not. I'm not one to venture much into the line of games, which is unfortunate. You know, everything that they're known for, or just some of the best like RPGs ever credited to them on the Super Nintendo. And when looking at this game, that's the first thing. I mean, aside from the awesome soundtrack, I was like, dang, these animations on these enemies are sweet. Yeah, especially one boss that had like so many like rotation of like animations on it. I was like, dang, this is impressive. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a very visually impressive game for such a late release on the Super NES. They really pushed the system to its limits as far as that goes. Story-wise, we're not going to get too much into it, honestly, because we really didn't play that far into the game. We basically turned it on and played like the first hour or so. Yeah. But essentially, when you start off the game, you're able to pick from 3 different roles for 3 different protagonists, and it's very similar to Wild Arms in that sense, where you could play as 3 different characters, but in the beginning of the game you get your choice, which is really cool. So you pick a character. We picked Scion. He was the soldier. So there's 3 different characters you could pick from. The soldier's name is Scion, the priestess Riza, and the archaeologist Surland. So depending on who you pick, the story is different. So you really kind of have to play through the game 3 times technically to get the full picture of the story. So pretty cool. The game takes a lot of inspiration from like Indian religions, not like Native American, but like actual Indian religions, right? So like Hindu, the way that it works is there's this concept of the Wheel of Time, and throughout the history of 4,000 years that the world is destroyed and recreated by a Rudra. That's the whole purpose of this. So the name's kind of taken from the Hindu god of destruction, Shiva. So pretty interesting stuff. It's pretty deep, and what's really cool is that the magic system, the way it works is you can name your own spells. So my buddy Daria plays RPGs. She did a really fantastic review of the game on YouTube, so definitely check out her review if you want a little bit more in-depth understanding of how the game works. But she named one of her spells butt cancer, and what was funny is the English translation. If you cast the spell for butt cancer, the words butt cancer scroll across the screen. So you can put literally anything you want. You know, you could put PixelTunes Radio as a spell and it'll go across the screen like, I'm gonna fight with PixelTunes. It's like, yeah, it's super funny. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There is an English translation of this game. I highly recommend picking it up. Pick up a repro of it. That's what I did. It's really well worth it. I really want to spend some time on this one at some point in time this year and just like really sink my teeth into it because it's a really, really good game and nobody knows about it. So yeah, definitely a tasty morsel. So what do we got next? We're going from one Japanese exclusive to another. What do you got for us, Niko?
Oh boy, I got something good. This is Stage 7 from the Super Famicom only release, Rendering Ranger R2, released in 1995. Music by Stefan Kramer, with additional music by Jesper Olsen.
Oh man, let's get funky.
And that was Stage 7 from Rendering Ranger R2 on the Super Famicom from 1995. That was by Stefan Kramer, with additional music by Jesper Olsen, who was also in charge of the music system and sound effects.
This track is like, if there was a drug that you could snort and you would just see non-stop color, and the color was just pixelated, like everything turns pixelated. Like your friends, your family, everything. This is the song that you would need to snort.
Sort of like a pixelated music visualizer.
Right. Yes. This is it, man.
Yeah.
Techno.
A pixelated music visualizer taken nasally.
Yes, taken nasally. Yes.
Yeah. Or just play Stage 7, which, I mean, boy.
Yeah.
This.
Well, I mean, you know, you could just do that. So yeah, why'd you pick this one?
Because I love it. After after recently discovering this game, I'd known about it, but I never took a look into it, which I don't know why. Because it's very interesting. Whole game is so interesting. Starting off from the fact that this game was designed by Manfred Trenz, known for the Turrican series, and the fact that this game designed by a German man was released as a Super Famicom exclusive. I think this is the only game I know of where it was a non-Japanese developed game that was exclusively released in the Japanese market.
One of the few, definitely.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah, it's pretty odd that happened. I mean, I guess one of the reasons why is the game took a very long time to be finished. I mean, it was a pretty late release in the SNES's library, or Super Famicom's library. I mean, 95, 96... You know, you're kind of really stretching things thin at that point. Most people had moved on to the PlayStation and the Saturn, and later on they would move on to the N64. The 3DO was also out. The Atari Jaguar was kind of wrapping up as well at that point. So, you know, you had a lot of systems kind of coming in and coming out. You know, it's kind of like a revolving door, if you will. And, you know, the only publisher that was interested in this game apparently was Virgin Interactive. Why they would publish it only in Japan, I don't know, because Virgin Interactive, I believe, is based out of the States or the UK. Yeah. So, kind of strange that they would publish this one. Maybe they just saw it and were like, "Oh, it's a shmup. It'll do well."
Yeah,
it's actually a run and gun and a shmup, because it kind of takes the best of both worlds. It's a run and gun, you know, similar, as you said, to the Turrican series, with pre-rendered graphics, which were originally supposed to be hand-drawn, and instead they changed to pre-rendered because of how well Donkey Kong Country did with pre-rendered graphics. So they kind of, you know, took up the challenge to make the graphics pre-rendered, and it's a very visually stunning game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I consider it Jim Power 2.0 or Jim Power R2.
I could see that, definitely. I like how driving this track is, but the only complaint that I have is there's one note that is just too, it's not high-pitched, but it's just slightly off, you know? Not like in the way that Daffy Duck track, not in the way that Daffy Duck track was. That's a tongue twister right there, where like you had a lot of notes that were like really intentionally off key.
Yeah.
This one, like, the note is on key, but it's like so pronounced that it like is almost ear numbing, I guess is the only way I could put it. It's like,
yep, I'm listening to that exact part right now. Yep.
Yeah. That and like the rest of the synths are very like kind of lower on the sound spectrum, you know, in terms of where they're coming from. It's, you know, it's a lot like lower, kind of like grungy sounding.
Yeah.
But you've got those high pitched synths that kind of come in for that lead line, and it's just so overpowering that it kind of kills the track at points. It's a good track. I like it. That's my only complaint, is that like, you know, I know what they were going for. I just didn't think it works.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
I consider a nice little breakdown. I don't know. I think the whole flow goes well from like the synths, and just the beat gets like fresher, you know, and it's like,
oh yeah,
and of course the like just like completes it.
Yeah,
and that like,
I love those synths. Yeah, like the synth opera style vocals, like the vocal track that comes in. That's really cool.
And I'm trying to remember the level that this was. Was it one of the?
This was one of the space shmup.
The freaking so much parallax scrolling. The freaking bleeds my eyes. Like, Jim Power doesn't bother me, but that stage I saw it, like how it scrolled, and I was just like, I was actually getting motion sick. I was like, damn, this game actually caused me to feel sick just looking at it. There's so much in that level. It is amazingly.
That's impressive coming from you, just because I know how big of a Jim Power fan you are. I can't remember, how did you find out about Jim Power and the Lost Dimension 3D? Did you find out about it on your own, or what? Because I was a huge fan of that game.
Tibbles. Joshua Tiberius.
Oh, was Tibbles? Oh, yes, our mutual friend.
He was the first to bring it to my knowledge.
Yes, yeah, man. And then, you know, he had to, you know, Niko had to lather himself up good with some Jim Power.
Oh my God.
And also some Rendering Ranger.
Well, more recently with Rendering Ranger, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely my kind of game. It's European, that design, and it's, of course, the side-scrolling sections and the shmup sections like Jim Power. definitely my style kind of game with a fantastic soundtrack that culminates together, which is just awesome.
Good stuff. So, Stefan Kramer. Every time I say the word Stefan, I almost want to follow it with Urkel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had to pause. He's only worked on this game, so that's his credit. But otherwise, Jesper Olsen, who did additional music and is credited for sound effects, he's also credited as the quote-unquote music system for this game. He did Turn It in 1990, Cover Girl Strip Poker in 1991.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, he did the PC Beeper, Roland, and Adlib music on that one. George Galaxo, I don't know, I'm not familiar with a lot of these games. And Ugly Prince Duckling was his last game in 2006.
Jesus.
So, yeah, interesting.
What interesting names of games.
Yeah, definitely. Quite a gap, like an 11-year gap between soundtracks. Then he disappeared, poof, into the night like a knight. Not a ninja, but a knight. All right, Justin, what is your next track?
Next up, we're going to listen to the Jawa Sandcrawler track from Super Star Wars. That was released on the SNES in 1992. Composer on this one is Paul Webb.
Paul Webb. All right, let's hit it.
Welcome back. That was from Super Star Wars in 1992. That was the Jawa Sandcrawler track, composed by Paul Webb.
I have one word for this track. Utini! Because that's all I heard while playing this game was the Jawas crying out, Utini!
Every time they died. Yeah, no. This is also a very minimalist track, considering everything else that's on today's episode. There is not as much going on in this track, which is sort of one of the reasons that I picked it. You can hear it gives more focus to the instruments that are going on. Mm-hmm. I also really sort of enjoyed this track. This was one of the levels that I spent the most time in.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Sandcrawler levels...
It's such a pain in the butt.
Such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It also felt like it made sense in the game. Like the track itself, because it's so minimalist, sort of feels like lonely in a word. I don't know if that's exactly what I was looking for, but like especially when you're in the Sandcrawler, there's not really a whole lot there. Like there's the Jawas that are running around that you have to murder. Everything else. It's not even droids. It's like the Jawas aren't bad characters in the movies, but in the game,
you're murdering them by the dozen,
killing them.
Like by the dozen.
All they did was they took R2-D2, and for that they must all die.
Yeah, clearly.
But it's them Luke, and a handful of, not droids, but robots that are in the sandcrawler. Like, there's the automatic floor panels that open up and shoot you with fire and stuff. It's a very lonely level. Like, you're very isolated, and the track, I feel, sort of gives that kind of an atmosphere.
I don't know how in the world I beat these games as a kid, but I beat all the 3 Star Wars games. These are all super difficult for the Super NES. I remember just renting them and just sitting down and playing through them all. I was obsessed with Star Wars in middle school, so this was like a real treat. I remember renting them right around the time when the special editions were coming out in the theater. And so it was just like a dream to be able to play like a Star Wars game. I remember when I saw Star Wars Shadow of the Empire and saw footage for that. That was the N64 one, based on the book.
Yep.
And I remember seeing the visuals for that. A friend of mine had gotten that game as a gift for his birthday. And I remember just like sitting there and watching these visuals and be like, I don't think video games are ever going to look better than this. Like, I was like, nope, impossible. It'll never happen.
Yep.
What did you think about this one, Niko?
I thought it's much like the Daffy Duck track. It's very fitting for the game and the level and what it's getting across. It's,
absolutely.
It's got that Star Wars vibe. Like, I could hear this being scored by John Williams. Yes.
Absolutely.
I myself have never been a big fan of the Star Wars games.
Oh, no?
I mean, I could play them and enjoy them, but I'm not huge. I'm not a big fan. They're still fun games.
They're very tedious.
And difficult.
They're very tedious, and they're very demanding. They demand a lot of attention and a lot of focus, if you will.
They're very grueling is the word I would probably use for them. This was the only one that I ever actually owned. I never owned Super Empire, Super Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay.
I have played them, and I have not gotten very far in either of them.
So hard. Especially Return of the Jedi.
Oh, God. I do recall beating this one when I was a kid. I obviously have lost that ability to do that as an adult. You know, they just get progressively harder as they go and more unforgiving.
It's a tough cookie.
That's why there's cheats for them.
Exactly.
Yes. I wanted to return a little bit to talking, kind of wrap up talking about the Super NES and the sound chip. So the SDSP, or S-DSP, this is capable of producing and mixing 8 simultaneous voices at the same time at any kind of relative pitch and volume in 16-bit stereo sound. The sample rate is about 32 kilohertz. And it has support for voice panning, where voices, kind of go back to back from left speaker to right speaker. ADSR envelope control, echo with filtering, which is via a programmable 8-tap FIR, which I'm not too familiar with a lot of this technical stuff. FIR is finite impulse response. And an ADSR there's something called an ADSR envelope, or attack, decay, sustain, release, which that is what that is. Attack time, decay time, sustain level, and release time. All for different elements of music as far as like tracks and how to utilize music on these. So pretty interesting stuff. Also want to mention that the sound samples for the S-DSP are stored in RAM, and they're compressed in a BRR format. BRR is a bitrate reduction, basically to shrink the size of the file so that way when it's compressed like that way it's not taking up as much space. They did this was a very common trick that they did a lot on the N64 as well. A lot of tracks were compressed, the audio was compressed, so when you listen to like soundtrack versions of most like disc-based versions, like the Perfect Dark soundtrack, for example, all those songs were compressed for the N64, so they sound definitely a lot clearer, a lot more crisp sounding on CDs.
Or the actual proper soundtrack.
Yeah. And then communications between the S-SMP and the S-DSP are carried out via a memory mapped I/O, also known as a isolated I/O. So, sorry to get super technical. Ed is a lot better at getting into deep, gritty detail about this type of stuff. But I did want to kind of touch on a lot of it just because it is super important to kind of know the limitations and the hardware that it used. It's very similar to MIDI, I believe, in a lot of ways. The development manual for the Super Nintendo has some interesting information. So I'm going to read this verbatim. It's a Sony SPC 700 series, which is used in the CPU core of the Super NES sound source. It's possible to access and address space of 64 kilobytes in the SPC series CPU address. Classification of the memory space is made according to purpose. Addresses 0000H through 00FFH are called page 0, and addresses 0100H through 01FFH are called page 1. And in regard to the data in this region, when direct page designation is carried out by the direct page flag, also known as P, within the program status word, it is possible to carry out data processing in wide-ranging addressing modes with a small number of machine cycles. Within the CPU, there are the universal registers A, X, and Y, program status word PSW, of the various flags, and program counter PC and stack pointer SP. To summarize, if we were to ever have an episode of PixelTunes Radio called Pixel Boob Radio, Niko told me during the break that he would want to be on that episode.
Yes.
And the episode would Completely focus on hot video game chicks and their songs.
Yes, most importantly, their songs.
Yeah. Most importantly, their songs.
Yes. I actually realized now that we couldn't do Lara Croft because hers are not pixelated. They are
polygonal.
Polygamy.
Polygonal.
Yeah.
Polygonal.
Yeah, let's go with that. All right, now that we've lost all our female listeners, let's go to our next track, which is my pick. Oh, and also, by the way, Paul Webb, just to kind of go back to Paul Webb before we jump to my track, he's done a ton of mostly licensed games like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He did Pac-Mania in 91, Monopoly, Tecmo NBA Basketball and Super NBA Basketball, Daydream and Davy in 92, Kingdom Crusade in 92, Mortal Kombat 94, he was the sound support or musical type support guy, WWF WrestleMania in 95, Space Jam in 96, he did sound design on. His last game, and again, I bounced all over the place, he has way more credits than these, but his last game was NCAA College Football 2K2 Road to the Rose Bowl, and that was in the glorious year of 2001. All right, so anyways, yeah, moving along. Now, this game is a Super Famicom track that I picked. It's not an exclusive to just Japan. Actually, the PAL regions also got this game. It's called Hebereke's Popoito. I know Ed's a big fan of this game and this track, most likely. 1995 was the year of release, and again, this track is stages 3 and 5. We'll get into who it's composed by or what it's composed by after the break. Let's give it a listen. Alright, welcome back. That was Hebereke's Popoito, the 1995 release, stages 3 and 5. The composers are most likely kind of like unofficial. There's no way to 100% guarantee that this is the case, but we believe that the composers are Noriaki Urata, Kazuo Ni, and Hiroshi Tsukamoto, with sound driver by Akito Takuchi. So Akito Takuchi apparently wrote the Saturn version, but they didn't have any music in the Super Nintendo version of the game. So we think that maybe they just did the sound driver. The reason why, and this was actually provided, this info was provided to us, thankfully, from Ed. Ed said that they are uncredited for the game, but the game's sequel, Hebereke no Popun, has music that is almost identical in style and sound. Yeah. So most likely they returned to do that game. So my personal feelings on this track is I love the track, but it sounds like if you got a group of penguins together and had them write a techno song. First off, I love the, it's got those like 90s like style like techno, like dun 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 dun. But then you throw in the random awesome animal sounds, the
squeaking.
Yeah, like the little like chirping. I love it. This track is adorable and bouncy and fun. It's got a great cadence to it. I dig it. It's awesome. I was really kind of surprised by this track. I didn't know what to think of it, but now that I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, this is just awesome. Niko, thoughts?
Oh yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That statement. Gameplay-wise, Sunsoft may have dropped off, but they could still keep their sound good and awesome, and this Sunsoft game certainly does. It's funny because this was released in '95, same year as Rendering Ranger 2. Like, you could like put these on like a club mix. It's like you got that Rendering Ranger track, and then it's like, all right, we're gonna step it up a bit with this Heberiques Popoito, and it's like bam, 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 and everyone's hopping and bumping in the club. It's fitting.
I just feel like they'd be hopping and bumping around the club, like dancing or whatever, but then they'd hear the noises and be like, did somebody let like a bunch of penguins loose in here? Like, what's going on? Yeah, so what do you think of the track, Justin?
I agree with what's already been said. It is super freaking cute. It's funny you said you feel like if you got a bunch of penguins together to write a techno track. I would say almost the same thing. Like, a bunch of penguins or puffins or like stupid, cute bird type animals to write like an electronic dance track.
Absolutely. That's totally plausible.
It's so bouncy, it's so silly. The squeak sounds, and the squeaking sounds fit in too. Like, I don't know that it would be the same without the occasional little bits in there. It absolutely fits the game too. The game is bright and cute and bouncy and silly, and the track is just so much fun to just sit and bop to.
And it's Puyo Puyo, basically, this game.
Puyo Puyo meets Dr. Mario.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the game is very similar to both of those titles. It's visually speaking, it's more like Puyo Puyo, I would say, than Dr. Mario, because you're not dealing with pills. You're dropping these little like blob character thingies. And what I found was really interesting is the characters are on the screen, like, depending on which stage you're playing, the enemies will be kind of like slowly walking back and forth on the play field. And until you place your puzzle piece on them, they will continue to move. So they'll kind of like walk back and forth. So it's kind of stressful because like you want to be able to like make sure that you get it on them. But if they moved like right before you put it on, you're like, ah, darn. It's a lot of fun though. We had a blast playing through this game. It's a lot of fun. Heberique is a series actually that Sunsoft is kind of the sponsor of. They created it. And they're just these like super cute, adorable characters. There's one that is actually, it looks like a penguin. And he's got a little hat on, like a little snow cap, and his name's Bop Louie. There's another one who's like a little cat that's in like a little cat costume, and that's Freon Leon. There's another one that's a ghost with shades on, sunglasses, and he has a hat and he has wings on top of the hat, and his name is Shades.
Slim Shady?
Oh. No, just Shades. I know. Shades. There's another one which the Japanese name of this character is Jennifer. But the character's name is Gil in the PAL release. And this character is a green lizard-like character with a little yellow ball on its head, kind of similar to Mog from Final Fantasy. There's also a character named Utsu, or Utsujin, and that's an alien kitty. Onion. Let's go with Onion. Yeah. That's a space pirate who's wearing like a spiked hat. Then there's Penchan, which Penchan is like, it looks like Freon Leon the cat, but instead of being in a cat suit, they're in a penguin suit. And then there's Bobo, or Boo Boo Dory, who's like a mother bird with the voice is like a male chain smoker. So they walk around like, oh yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm Boo Boo, that's me. So,
too good.
Yeah, oh, Rocco. Miss Bighead. So the characters may be familiar to those who have played Euphoria, the saga, because that is it's also called Heberique in Japan. That is an awesome game that I definitely recommend people check out. That is really cool. It's like a non-linear game developed by Sunsoft, kind of like a non-linear action game where you use these characters to rescue other characters in the Hebereke universe. So definitely recommended game. Yeah, the Hebereke series is great. I love all the little goofy characters, and they're a lot of fun. And so this game just really kind of nails that whole feeling. And apparently there was a sequel, which we talked about, Hebereke's Papoon as well. And so, you know, definitely a cool little hidden franchise that, you know, I think people will dig if they check out. So good stuff.
It's good stuff.
Niko, final thoughts on Hebereke?
It is adorable. And let's get more of those beep 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 penguin noises.
Yes, yes. Oh man. All right, so we are moving into what is the longest to date song on PixelTunes Radio history, courtesy of Niko. Niko, what do you got for us?
All right, I know I keep saying this. I got something good for you. The best of the best. This is the track Alpha Ceti from 1993's Utopia, the Creation of a Nation by the one and only Barry Leach.
Barry Leach. All right, let's pull up a chair and grab some lemonade because this is going to be some groovy tunes. Let's check it out. Niko,
Mike,
what did you do?
I gave you a great song.
You did give us a good track. This is a very long one. Jeez, wow.
Yes.
So what is this?
Well, this was, of course, Alpha Ceti, the track from 1993's Utopia, The Creation of a Nation by Barry Leach.
The 1993 release.
Yes, Utopia, Creation of a Nation was a game released on the, I think it was the Amiga first. It was also on the Atari ST and MS-DOS. I believe that the Amiga version was the first version, or both that and DOS.
It was, yeah. It was 1991 on the Amiga, Atari ST, and the MS-DOS.
Yes, and this is a strategy, build your own nation simulation kind of game. I don't know. It's a type of game I am not familiar with, do not have any expertise, nothing of how to play this. I tried it for once, a year ago. I couldn't get anywhere, and I just was like, man, thank goodness that you can just chill back and listen to the music. I'm sure that's what people who owned this game back in the day did. They were just like, damn, the soundtrack's hot.
Yeah, I believe that they call this, this is one that we would previously on Pixel Tunes call a soundtrack delivery system.
Yes.
if you will. That's what this game is.
Quite.
What do you think of this one, Justin?
The song itself was really neat. I don't often use that word. I don't mean it in a bad way. It's not something that I've particularly heard before. It's very relaxing, and taking a look at the game and some of the screenshots and what the gameplay is all about. It looks kind of almost like a SimCity-ish,
kind of
like a city builder type thing.
Yeah,
which makes a lot of sense. Like I said, the song itself is fairly relaxing, which I think you really need in a game like this. The music was more hectic. It makes it harder to actually play the game, especially with all the micromanagement stuff that you have to do with it and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's something.
The song that lends well to this style of game.
This game is not at all my kind of game, personally. Not my cup of tea. I do not like strategy building games where you have to build cities. That is give me a calculator. I'll have more fun. I'll write boobies on the calculator or something like that, that just, oh man, they're not my type of game at all. But I will say, I will slightly disagree with you regarding the music being chill. I would say that it's chill up until that speak and spell comes in and bursts through the wall and tries to eat your children.
That's a fair point.
That's stuff of, yeah, I mean, I liked it, don't get me wrong, but to go from this kind of Dean Evans kind of spacey really chill, da 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 da, to go from something like that to I feel like this is what I'm seeing and feeling as far as this track goes. I feel like you're listening to the track and you're getting chill and spacey and you're playing the game and you're starting to fall asleep because this game is boring. So you're playing the game and you're like, man, this is a really good track, man. I kind of want to take a nap. And right as you're about to fall asleep with the SNES mouse in your hand, all of a sudden you just hear and you're like, well, I'm up. It's 6 a.m. I gotta go to work. I feel like that is what's going on with this track. It's keeping you up so that way, it's keeping things lively and changing. And part of the reason why I feel like that's the case is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Barry Leach, maybe if we do get an opportunity to talk to Barry Leach in the future and at some point in time, which we'd love to do, he would have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when you have a track that's this long, you can't just make the track the way it is. You have to splice together multiple tracks in order for the track to succeed as one single track. And so if this track is one single song like this, then I'm totally wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about. But that was always my thing about this. There's another track that we played on a previous episode. I believe it was the ending episode that we did with Cam Worma. And that was Shadow of the Ninja, which Shadow of the Ninja has this track which seems like it's two tracks kind of stitched together in a way, where the one part of the track ends and then it's more like a very somber sort of track, very similar to this, and then it kicks off with hi-hats, and then it kicks into this awesome driving energy, high energy Iku Mizutani style track, Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, that style of super important you did a thing track. you know, and so I kind of feel like that's the same thing here with Utopia. Barry Leach stitched together 2 tracks to make 1 track, but he'll have to correct me.
Yeah, if that ever does happen, that would be quite the good information to get out of him. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's the very first question that I would ask him. I'd be like, Mr. Leach, WTF? What's going on with this track? Like, please give me the background, because I'm very intrigued on how that hardware worked. But I would say that the Amiga comparison, as far as the hardware goes, is very similar to the Super NES in a lot of ways. A lot of Amiga style games, or games that were on the Amiga, I find that Europeans, you know, because the Amiga was a primarily European computer-based system, it was able to transition those games over to the Super NES quite well, actually. So I kind of feel like this game is definitely a much more Amiga-paced game, because that was the style of games that were coming out back then.
Oh.
So,
God, yeah.
You know what I mean? So to convert something like that over to the Super NES, it must have been a pretty daunting task.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, this whole thing, I mean, this does scream, it screams Amiga, like, just like, this was originally Amiga, and obviously many people agree that the original Amiga soundtrack is the superior version. Now, I listened to the Super Nintendo version here first, and then I went to listen to the Amiga version. Both are great, much like Jim Power, Mutant Planet, Jim Power Lost Dimension, same, you know, thing going on. Both are unique in their own rights and should have their own listen on each soundtrack. I prefer the Super Nintendo. I like how much more, to me, it is calmer. And it might be the YouTube version that you're listening to with like that that might make it sound bad. The RSN file I have, it's a lot more tamer.
Right.
And just,
yeah, that's a possibility.
God, the soundtrack's so good. And what's nice about the Super Nintendo version is it has an exclusive track, Gamma Lucra, which there's only 4 on the Amiga version. And all the tracks are just, they're so nice to listen to. And what I really like is, back about a year and a half ago, I posted this track specifically on, you know, like game music thing on Reddit, saying like, this is beautiful and it needs more love. And Barry Leach actually commented on it. I believe this is the actual account for Barry, just because of how it, you know, he's talking about how this is his music. And
right.
He's just all like, what do you say? He says, honestly, I can't stand hearing the SNES version. My hands were tied with the lack of pitch bending and the pulse sweep effect that really needed pitch bends. Which, if some people, you know, describe like the Super Nintendo doesn't sound as good as the Amiga, it's this whole pitch bend thing might be why, and the fact that
yeah, that makes sense.
It wouldn't let us change the tempo either, and that's very interesting to hear. You know, just another insight into the compositional and just limitations that Mr. Leach had. Which, God bless you, man. I think you made the sound magnificent on the Super Nintendo, good sir.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for these long of tracks. Like, who else could do that?
Oh, absolutely. Barry Leach actually worked on something called M-Edit, which is also known as the Ocean MIDI editor. It's a tracker program created by somebody named Leslie Long. And so it was pretty much what was used in-house at Ocean Software for them to be able to compose music for like DOS and Super NES tracks. Pretty interesting stuff. It was actually modeled after another tracker called Octamed, which Ocean used to make their Amiga stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the compatibility between those two. But yeah, they are both MIDI-based, sample and MIDI-based for the record. So, interesting little track. Barry Leach, no stranger to the podcast. We played him so many times. I just, you know, Lethal Weapon, we played a track off of that on the, I believe it was either the Amiga or the Super NES, or both. I think it might have been both, in all honesty. I think we also played him on something Back to the Future related, possibly.
Maybe one of his NES tracks?
I'm not entirely sure. I know we've played him multiple times, though. So, Top Gear. We played him on Top Gear for the racing track that he did. You know, pretty infamous for doing like Top Gear. I believe he also did Lotus games, Lotus Challenge. So, yeah, he's a great composer, and we'd love to have him on the show. So, you know, hopefully one of these times we can get him on. All right, Justin, your final pick. What do you got for us?
So my last track is not as obscure as anything else we're doing. It is from Gradius 3 in 1990 or 1991, depending on whether it was released in Japan or North America.
Depending on the region, right?
I think the American release was 1991. The track is Aqua Illusion from the Bubble stage, and the composers on this are Kazuki Muraoka, Kazuhiko Urahara, Yuki Morimoto, and Harumi Ueko.
Cool. All right, let's shoot it up.
Welcome back to Pixel Tunes. That was the Aqua Illusion track from Gradius 3, released in 1991 in North America, by Kazuki Muraoka, Kazuhiko Urahara, Harumi Ueko, and Yuki Morimoto.
Yes. Gradius 3, definitely the most popular song of the podcast, I would say. Probably the most well-known. But the track itself, not as well-known. I'd say it's more of a deep cut, if you will.
Yeah.
And I really do dig this track. I think that it's more fitting for what's going on. I think that first track that you hear in the game, the you know, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, that track is more... I could totally drive around and blast the crap out of that song on my...
It's kind of iconic
car.
too, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is more like fitting for what's going on. I feel like there's so much happening that the game is slowing down because, you know, it's the Super NES and, you know, whenever there's anything insane happening on it, there's just a sprite limitation where there's just too much going on. Yeah. And very similar to the NES, it would just start to kind of slow down. The frame rate really takes a dive.
Yeah, that was actually one of the reasons that I like this game is I'm not big on shmups or bullet hells or anything in that genre, but Gradius 3 is one of my favorites because of the fact that when you get into things, especially in this level, this is it's not really a water level, I guess it's the bubble level. The edges of the screen are like water, but there's always ends up being so much on screen because eventually you get partway through the level and these giant bubbles are floating around, and as you pop them, they split into smaller bubbles, and then there's just like 2,000 things on screen, and you can dodge things a little bit more easily as long as you have the space.
Right, right.
Yeah, I really like this track and this level in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the game itself, this was one of the first Super NES games that I owned, and I do remember having a lot of fun with it. I would also say that this was probably one of the first shmups I ever played, the second being UN Squadron, which I also owned, and who I've talked so much about in the past, as it was really my go-to for shooters. If I wanted to play a shooter, you know UN Squadron's getting played. And both games suffer from tremendous slowdown. But I always thought it was a good thing because it would allow you the opportunity to focus on what you needed to do.
Exactly.
And that's kind of why I liked shmups on the Super Nintendo more than the Genesis. But granted, the Genesis games that are shmups are so phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, just off the top of my head, anything by, I think his name is Tatsuya Uemura, but don't quote me on that. He did Zero Wing, he did Hellfire, you know, those are just two games. I think he also did Twin Cobra, if I recall.
Yes.
Yeah, all just phenomenal games, phenomenal soundtracks, really good, fast-paced Genesis shmups. Elemental Master, Battlemania Daiginjo, and Troubleshooter, both really fun shooters. So the Genesis really was where it was at when it came to shooters. Not that the Super Nintendo couldn't also do shmups, but I really do feel like the Genesis was able to do them better.
Yeah.
You know? Genesis does in this case. What about you, Nico?
I've never heard of this game. Gradius?
Gradius,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I thought this track
Grade
was
Ius.
so good, so underrated. Like, forget the Green Lantern track for being underrated. I don't think anyone's ever heard this track before. That's this is dumb shtick I'm pulling, but no, I mean, as far as
you're giving Justin a ribbing.
No,
It's all right.
No. I mean, when it does come to Gradius 3, I'm actually not super familiar with the sound. Definitely Aqua Illusion. Like, I don't really. I only play like the first level, and then I get die, and I'm like, screw this game. And
yeah.
But when I did get to it, I was just like, oh, nice. I like it. Fits well. These bubbles slowing down my game to 2 frames. I like it. I can maneuver and survive a little bit longer, but it's fitting. It's fitting for Gradius. I mean, you can't go wrong. I've always been more of a fan of Gradius 2, but that's just, just to say that. Even Gradius 1 I don't like that much, both for this music and the game itself. I think it's just because the second one has voice samples, and I like that. I'm a sucker for voice samples on my NES games.
Speed up. Slow down. You
can tell that quality.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Gradius 3, I mean, it's so good. It is good, and music is wonderful all throughout. And I would say it counts for a deep cut, because I think most people would just be like, that first track.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's Gradius 3. We're going to go over the composers real quick.
So Kazuki Muraoka has done a ton of stuff, starting out as a music editor in Super Contra in 1998, backing up actually doing sound effects in Rock and Rage 1986. Obviously, Gradius 3, it says 1990. Metal Gear Solid in 2000. Some of the Beatmania games. He was a sound supervisor, sound programmer. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
A lot of Metal Gear Solid stuff. We've talked about him before.
Yeah. Wow, tons. Even up to The Phantom Pain in 2015.
Yeah.
And did some sound for a Yu-Gi-Oh game in 2002.
Yeah. He's done a bunch of like sound direction and sound editing and sound support.
Yeah.
Mostly like a sound support guy.
Oh, dude, he was a sound creator in Top Gun 1987.
Yes.
Everybody's played that game. Next up, we have Kazuhiko Urahara, and they started out doing sound effects in Vampire Killer in 1986.
Yes.
Did some musical arrangement for Snatcher in 1988. Composed some music also for Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake.
That was the MSX sequel, right?
For
not
the
the
NES.
NES Metal Gear 2, which was not good, or not as good.
Did a lot of sound production on a number of games, including NBA Give and Go, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and some international Superstar Soccer games. Looks like the last game that they did audio on was they were a lead sound producer on International Superstar Soccer 3 in 2003.
Yeah. Also a lot of sound production and composition, but mostly like sound design, sound production. As far as the other two, Yuki Morimoto worked on just a couple titles. Vulcan Venture in 1988, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse in 1989. Gradius 3, of course, did sound editing on. That's what they're credited for. Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Bust Loose, which the other composer Kazuhiko Uehara also worked on. Ganbare Goemon Gaiden 2 Tenka no Zaiho in 1992. There were actually quite a few Ganbare Goemon games, also known as the Legend of Mystical Ninja series in the US. So yeah, they worked on Ganbare Goemon 3 Shishi Jurokubi no Karuku in 94, and then 95 Ganbare Goemon Kira Kira Doshu Boku ga Dancer ni Nata Wake. So definitely a big time Ganbare Goemon person. And then Harumi Ueko worked on mostly, honestly, Konami stuff. Gyrus in 1988, sound creation on that. Top Gun, the second mission for NES, Cosmic Wars in 89, SD Snatcher in 1990. Jumping ahead a little bit, again with the Ganbare Goemon Gaiden, Kita Ogun Kisuru, which I believe is the Game Boy game, possibly. If not, then no, it's an NES game. It's an RPG of the Goemon series. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, and also Tournament Fighters. They did sound design and sound editing on, respectively. Lethal Enforcers in 94. Jumping ahead, Castlevania Dracula X in 95. And jumping ahead, their final game, Beatmania IIDX 15 DJ Troopers in 2008. They did new song composition and remixers and arrangers. So, yeah, lots of composers, all really good stuff, mostly Konami stalwarts. So, my final pick for this episode is The Great Battle 4, and this came out in 1994, and it's the track Floating World Martom, also known as the Force Stage, and it is composed by Norihiko Togashi. Alright, welcome back. That was a face melter if I ever played one before. That was the Great Battle 4, the 1994 Super Famicom exclusive track. The song was Floating World Martom, also known as Fourth Stage. The track is by Norihiko Togashi, who has done some pretty fantastic yet very unknown work. Games like Burning Force in 1990, Ultraman in 91 for the Super NES. He's worked quite a bit on the Great Battle series, composed for Great Battles 3, 4, and 5. Also did Great Battle 2 and Kamen Rider, Kinnikuman Man, Dirty Challenger, and Crayon Shin-Chan. He's done a couple Crayon Shin-Chan games. Bomberman Quest in 1998, Crisis Beat in 1998, and Power Drift in 1998. He also did some work for Sierra on Roberta Williams' Phantasmagoria in 1997. He was the sound programmer on that. He also did Pocket Fighter, the Wonder Swan version in 2000, Speedy Gonzales Aztec Adventure for the Game Boy Advance. He was the sound creator on that, and his last game he worked sound effects on, Disaster Report, in 2002. So, the Great Battle 4 is part of the Kampada Hero series, and it's kind of like a crossover for a bunch of... It's made by Band Presto, and it's kind of like combining a bunch of Sentai heroes or like monster heroes sort of thing. Not like Godzilla, but like Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and Mobile Suit Gundam. The Mobile Suit Gundam character, we believe, from what I understand, is like a female character in a Gundam.
I think in this one it is.
Yeah.
Because there are many different Gundams throughout the iterations that they've done.
And then there's like another character, which I've never seen before. It was like a blue-haired anime kind of looking character that looks almost like a cat a little bit.
It looks like one of the characters from Yu Yu Hakusho to me.
Yeah. I was going to say like something from Samurai Pizza Cats, like an angry Samurai Pizza Cats
That's
character.
Fair too.
This game is, in my opinion, like a lot more different than the other Great Battle games. We talked about the Great Battle on the NES a couple episodes ago. I think it was like a free pick episode where I found this track, or Ed found this track. I can't remember what it was from, but it was from a Great Battle game that came out on the NES. And the music was like straight up Mega Man. Like it was really good stuff. And here we kind of have a revisiting to that style. Sound-wise, this is like a very like Mega Man X style track, and it takes place in a stage that really kind of looks like it's right out of Storm Eagle.
Yeah.
From Mega Man X.
Yes, outside, windy,
yes,
stormy.
The Windy City.
Yeah, stormy. But I love this track. It is great. I love those guitars, those simpatico guitars that are like a slight octave off the double guitar kind of style. The dun 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 dun. It's like a great Japanese action track, and it's very fitting for this style of gameplay, which is a side-scroller shooter, very similar to Mega Man X. Honestly, like style, design-wise. The whole thing is like a cuter version of Mega Man X. And you could switch between those 4 characters that we talked about. It's 3 initially, and then you gain the 4th one after you beat the first level. Kamen Rider has like a very silly run, like a double dash like type run.
Oh yeah, it's almost like a Sonic run.
Yeah, where he has the rolling feet. Right. And he has a flamethrower. And then Mobile Suit Gundam, she has like a rifle like backpack type thing, and that makes her like fly. She can like burst up to high locations, and they can all like wall jump for the most part. Ultraman has like a grenade launcher kind of thing, and then the 4th character has like a machine gun, if I recall.
Yeah, and a double jump.
And a double jump.
You double tap jump, and they do like a short burst in
like
a
zigzag.
Direction. Yeah,
kind of like, or diagonal. Yeah. And then after you beat the level, you go into a boss fight, and the boss fight is pretty much like very similar to like Chojin Sentai Jetman for the Famicom, where like you're playing like an action-based game, and then your boss fight is actually a mech battle. Yeah. If you will. It was very difficult. We couldn't really figure out how to do it. Our timing was way off. I don't blame the game necessarily. I think we just really had no clue how to play it. So
yeah, we did a little bit better once we realized that there were actually like combo moves
you could do, right?
Things you could do, but there's a lot to do with the timing, and there's also that scanning aspect that we didn't really understand.
Yeah, you can like scan. There's a circle that appears, and you can move it along like where the enemy is, and then it like goes through them. It's like a see-through thing, and then that tells you where what you need to do, but it's all in Japanese, so like I really couldn't figure it out. I wanted to love this game, and I did walk away from it going, I need to buy this and then figure out what the heck's going on so I can enjoy it.
I wonder if there's an English translation.
There might be, but the game is super cheap. I mean, you can pick it up for under $20. Definitely recommend it. If you like Wild Guns, the sequel to this, Great Battle 5, is basically Wild Guns. Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
Pretty
nice.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like they took inspiration from like more popular games and just kind of like attached the Gunpowder Hero series, the crossovers. So cool stuff. What do you think of this one, Niko?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I of course got that Mega Man X vibe once again. It's like stepping up from Imperium. It's just got more of the instrumentation that makes it feel like it's, straight up Mega Man X.
Oh, absolutely. I think they really did use the sound font from Mega Man X.
I would not doubt it at all. And the game definitely is pretty neat. I like how it looks. I like the combination of all the different like series. It's just it's adorable. It's cool. It's neat.
It's Adora cool.
It's
Adora.
It's coolable.
It's coolable. Yeah, it's pretty much that sums it up. Graphically, it's very impressive. I thought big, huge sprites. Like there's a scene in the beginning of the game where like you get to a certain point where you're on the ship type thing, and then the ship just starts careening down. And you see like tons, like dozens of explosions all over the place, and then you see your character kind of like riding on like a slant on this ship as it's going down. It's really cool. Like visually speaking, the game, even though it's got a cutesy style to it with the SD style, it's still really cool, like visually.
Yeah, no, it looks great. The animation on the sprite animation, even for the boss battle scene, are really, really smooth, really well done.
Yeah, like giant big sprites. Yeah,
which is weird because it goes from this super deformed thing to the, I guess they all combine to Voltron together into something bigger, and then all of a sudden it's a giant mech fight.
What did you say yesterday when we were playing it? You were like, I'll form the head.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, good stuff. So that closes out our Super Nintendo Super Famicom Deep Cuts episode. I just kind of wanted an opportunity to discuss some games that we haven't really heard that much from, or discuss tracks that you really wouldn't listen to on an average everyday basis. The stuff that wasn't the typical Super NES like popular tracks that you would normally hear. I'm sure that we'll do an episode on those someday, but we played those so often like on the show otherwise that I really wanted to focus on doing something different here today. So we did something interesting last episode, and I've talked to Ed about it. We're going to continue doing it. It is basically favorite tracks. So at the end of the episode, we want to kind of recap and pick some of the absolute favorite track that we take away from this episode, and we go, you know what, I want to track down this game and buy it, or this was my favorite track, and here's, this is the reason why, or whatever. So we're going to go with our guest of honor, Niko. What was your favorite track of the podcast?
Oh boy, favorite track. There's so many. There's so many good ones.
Oh my goodness. So many. There's 12.
There's 12 and 4 of my own that I would probably choose.
Yes.
But I think I would probably have to go with the Rendering Ranger R2 because the other three, the Green Lantern track was also discovered recently as well. I definitely had more time sitting on Utopia and the Stone Protectors music tracks. But Rendering Ranger R2 was definitely the most recent discovery, and it's been the most beloved to me. That I've always had it like playing whenever I'm coming home from work. I'm just like, I'm gonna chill out to some of that nice club techno, just chill out on that stage 7 and just relax. It's and I definitely gotta play the game. It has Retro Chivos, so it will be a great journey to appreciate the pre-rendered graphics and the overall great design of that game, which is my cup of tea.
Very cool. Justin?
So many good tracks all around.
Yeah.
I think what came out at the top of this for me, mostly because I'm probably going to now go find this and pick this up. Every time I do one of these episodes with you, I have to go out and buy games. You're going to bankrupt me.
I know, right?
Treasure of the Rudress, the Battle for the Fields.
Okay.
That was a really good track. I am a fan of JRPGs in general, and I am a sucker for a good battle theme. So looking that one up, it's not super expensive to get a repro of the English translation. And the song itself was just really, really nice.
Yeah, no, I agree. That Treasure of the Road was definitely one of my top picks. I'm actually gonna have to say Great Battle 4 is gonna be my pick. I really love that. Like, I had a lot of fun with the game, aside from the really kind of stressful boss battles, but I love the music and the experience overall. Anything that I can play that makes me feel like I'm playing a Mega Man game, and this did. And I love the cutesy characters too. If I had to pick two, I would say Hebereke's Popoito. But yeah, definitely the Great Battle 4 and Hebereke's Popoito are up there as far as my favorite tracks. What were some of your favorite tracks? Post on facebook.com/groups/PixelTunesRadio. Join our group and let us know in the comment section for this episode. Tell us what your favorite tracks were. We'd love to hear. So, I wanted to thank Justin for being on the show and subbing in for Ed again. Definitely much appreciated.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back sometime. And of course, Niko, the WiiGuy, always a pleasure chatting with you about video games. Niko, where can we find you on the interweb?
Well, yes, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about video game music. That is my bread and bread. No butter, just bread. Just double bread.
No butter?
Double down.
No butter. Well, no butter. What are you doing?
Dude, I don't want to get fat. Come on.
Yo, bread and pickles.
Yes. Oh, dude, I'll have pickles on my bread.
Dude, butter, but like pickles. But no, it's a butter made of pickles. There you go.
Pickled butter.
Pickle butter.
Oh.
I feel sick.
Welcome to Pickle Butter Radio.
Yeah. But yeah,
so yeah, where
if you want to spread over onto my social media, well, not social, well, it's all social in retrospect. You could find me at youtube.com/WiiGuy309 for 8-bit stereo, the thing I'm mostly known for all around the internet, and twitch.tv/TheWiiGuy_GGG, my Twitch channel, where I do that more now because streaming is, I think, the way to go.
Yeah, man, and that's gaming
going gone,
right?
The GGG.
Yeah, that's what it stands for. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Indeed, and you do like a lot of, I know you call them Chivos in the multi-tap Discord when we talk about them, but Chivos are basically like the retro Chivos.
Retro achievements. Oh. Yes, the greatest thing since sliced bread that I found. Retro achievements, so good.
But not pickle butter.
But not pickle.
Always remember that. No.
No.
That is awesome. So thank you very much, Niko, again for being on the show, and Justin as well. Stay tuned. Next episode 106, will be our 4th anniversary episode. And of course, Ed will be back for that episode. Yay. So we are excited to welcome him back with open arms and open jars of pickle butter. It's going to be a blast. We're going to... I'm not 100% sure of what we're going to be doing, but it is going to be a 4th anniversary celebration. I don't think it's going to be like a favorite tracks sort of thing. Maybe it will, like favorite tracks from the past 4 years. I don't know, but we're going to definitely do something special. Maybe not as special as the 100th episode because that took months to prepare, but it's going to be a blast. Definitely stay tuned for that. We've got a ton of stuff coming up for the upcoming year of 2018, so stay tuned to PixelTunes Radio. You can check us out at pixeltunesradio.com and also at PixelTunes Radio on Twitter. You can listen to every episode of PixelTunes Radio on either our website or iTunes, Stitcher, or any other podcatcher device that you would like to use. You could also watch on youtube.com/dongled, which is my channel, and that's where I do Dude, You Haven't Played This Game, Gaming, Linguistics, and Noob Repair, and all other sorts of videos, rants, raves, and good video game related stuff on there. Ed has a podcast as well called Impulse Project that he does with our good buddy Brian from Pixelated Audio, and you can check that out. That's where they do stuff and things with music that is not directly from video games, but is using the chips from video games to make it. So good stuff there. Stuff like Commodore 64, Amiga, etc., etc. So good stuff. And that's about it. So again, thank you for listening to Pickled Butter Tunes Radio. And signing off. So thanks, guys. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
2018, yay.